Swalwell slept with a Chinese spy. That's a huge story that directly implicates whether he can be trusted with intelligence data. Schiff directly lied when he knew that he was lying. Not because he ended up being wrong later. He knew that what he was spreading about Trump was a lie. Why would anyone want them on the Intelligence Committee? Well said by Kevin McCarthy to lay out the exact rationale. Now, I don't know what the left wing hears because I don't know how this question is covered, but he got his story out there and he did a great job of it. Kevin McCarthy's now the speaker. We know that it took 15 votes to make him speaker. Everybody out there tried to tell you that he was going to be incredibly weakened, enfeebled, not a very powerful leader. I think some of his early actions are refuting that to a significant degree. And I do believe, Buck, this is one of the big legacies of Donald Trump's time as the president of the United States. Because I think Trump showed how unfair the media is going to be in their coverage of Republicans, and also demonstrated you don't have to Mitt Romney style beg and plead for journalists who are now basically propagandists of the left wing. You don't have to beg for them to like you because there's really nothing you're going to do that they're going to like. Mitt Romney, most blandly inoffensive, I would say, politician to run for president, maybe in decades. And they turned him into a caricature and attacked him mercilessly. And yet he's still begging for their appreciation, for their approbation. And Trump basically showed how to deal with the media, that these people are activists. They don't respect you. You can use them to tell a story, but don't allow their questions to dictate the way that you behave, or fear of what they might write change what you would otherwise do. And with that in mind, I want to play for you Kevin McCarthy last night explaining why he was not going to seat Swalwell and Adam Schiff on the Intelligence Committee. Listen to the question to the extent you can hear it. It's a little bit light, but then enjoy this filet.
The Intel Committee is different. You know why? Because what happens in the Intel Committee, you don't know. What happens in the Intel Committee, although the secrets are going on in the world, other members of Congress don't know. What did Adam Schiff do as the chairman of the Intel Committee? What Adam Schiff did, use his power as a chairman and lie to the American public. Even the Inspector General said it. When Devin Nunes put out a memo, he said it was false. When we had a laptop, he used it before an election to be politics and say that it was false and said it was the Russians. When he knew different, when he knew the intel, if you talk to John Radcliffe, DNI, he came out ahead of time and says there's no intel to prove that, and he used his position as chairman, knowing he has information the rest of America does not, and lied to the American public. When a whistleblower came forward, he said he did not know the individual, even though his staff had met with him and set it up. So no, he does not have a right to sit on that. But I will not be like Democrats and play politics with these, where they removed Republicans from committees and all committees. So yes, he can serve on a committee, but he will not serve on Intel because it goes to the national security of America. And I will always put them first, all right? And if you want to talk about Swalwell, let's talk about Swalwell, because you have not had the briefing that I had. I had the briefing and Nancy Pelosi had the briefing from the FBI. The FBI never came before this Congress to tell the leadership of this Congress that Eric Swalwell had a problem with a Chinese spy until he served on Intel.
I mean, he keeps going, by the way, and it is noteworthy that Nancy Pelosi and Kevin McCarthy were given a specific defensive briefing, I would assume, about the risks of Eric Swalwell's compromise. The fact this guy, first of all, Eric Swalwell, I don't say this to be mean. I actually don't ever like being mean. I feel badly. Eric Swalwell is an idiot, okay? Just you watch the guy talk. It's amazing. I don't know who votes for him, but, they don't really care. Eric Swalwell is not a bright guy. He's on the Intelligence Committee, which is in and of itself kind of amusing. And he's a not very smart guy who is a total left-wing propagandist doing the bidding of the Russia-Trump collusion lies and all the rest of it, just like Adam Schiff. Adam Schiff is a left-wing hatchet man. But to, compare Adam Schiff and Swalwell, as grotesque as Schiff is as a person and lacking in integrity and completely oleaginous as a fellow. Eric Swalwell had a relationship with a Chinese spy, which
slept
is
with
a
a Chinese spy. Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I agree with you on Schiff. I mean, he's a liar. And the other part of this that I particularly appreciate is Kevin McCarthy coming out and saying, look, George Santos has told lies. And as a result, his own congressional district can make the decision whether or not they want to reelect him, something that will happen probably I don't know when the primary is going to be in New York, but July or August of next year. So not very long from now. And that'll be a real argument. Somebody will run against him, and we'll decide what makes sense there. Schiff and Swalwell are liars, too, and their congressional districts made the decision to send them back to Congress. Joe Biden is one of the biggest liars we've ever seen over decades of his political career, and he's the president of the United States right now. So this idea that if you tell lies, you don't deserve to be elected. I wish we only elected the honest Abes of America, right? People who tell the truth and are willing to address the truth honestly. But both parties have skilled liars who they regularly return to office.
Politicians often have a troubled relationship with the truth. I mean, we really are going back to poli-sci 101 stuff here, or just, do you read the newspaper, everybody, right? I mean, we all know this. We all know that there are politicians that exaggerate. There are politicians that tell outright, blatant lies, fabricate things. Did you mention Elizabeth Warren, the fake Native American? Because I always like
No, but I mean, I think that's important to mention too. Yes.
Elizabeth Warren pretended to be a Cherokee for decades of her life, and it was the scam worked. And she's a senator. They wanted her to be president. She was a top 3 or 4 presidential contender for the Democrats the last time around. She built her entire career on a lie. It's not a small lie, because it was, elect me as a senator because I'm a Harvard law professor. Hire me as a Harvard law professor because I was a UPenn professor. Hire me as a UPenn professor because you need a Native American UPenn professor in the law school. So the whole thing was built on this foundation of bull. And, here she is now treated with reverence still by Democrats. So that's why all the stuff about Santos, this is just this is largely, first of all, everyone I know on the right, Clay, finds it kind of amusing. They're like, wow, this guy, he's gotten into, who is is it Frank Abagnale that Leonardo DiCaprio played in Catch Me If You Can?
Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah. I mean, Santos, I think he's going to end up selling his life rights. The problem will be trying to track down the lies versus the truth. But I think that's probably the direction he's heading in. But this notion that we're going to self-police because somebody has said things that are not true. No, sorry. If you're going to try to not just reelect Adam Schiff or however many times, but want him to be back on the Intelligence Committee, Kevin McCarthy is completely right here. Producer Allie's pointing out Biden plagiarized, Biden's lied. Biden has lied about so many things that the de facto defense of Biden is, well, nobody really takes him that seriously on this stuff because he lies all the time. That's effectively the Joe Biden defense.
Well, Biden's defense now is just he's super old and legitimately doesn't know what's happening from one moment to the next. But when he actually had control of his faculties, he lied all the time. And I think that's pretty significant. And so this idea of, hey, we're going to decide which lies are unacceptable. I mean, Blumenthal is in the Senate right now. He lied about serving in Vietnam. Like, that's a really big lie that's insulting to anyone who actually did.
Look, it's funny to watch Democrats cry about this, too. Over at MSNBC, Chris Hayes saying they've done nothing wrong. They've done nothing wrong about Swalwell and Schiff. Well, we'll address this in a second. Play 7.
Speaker Kevin McCarthy and the House Republican caucus are operating on that same old nothing matters premise. See a clear example of that in the way McCarthy is behaving about committee assignments. He and his caucus, Marjorie Taylor Greene among others, want revenge against the Democrats for the removal of 2 of his members, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Paul Gosar, from their committee assignments in 2021. That came after Greene and Gosar both used violent rhetoric against their Democratic colleagues. So McCarthy chose 3 Democrats who've done absolutely nothing wrong and began threatening to kick them off their committees if the Republicans won. All that Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, and Ilhan Omar are guilty of is really being targets of Republican ire.
Okay, first of all, that's not true. Schiff and Swalwell are liars who were wrong about the entire Russia collusion debacle and pushed it more than almost anybody else. But I do just find the pearl clutching over at MSNBC. Oh, you mean elections have consequences? Yeah, sorry. Dems aren't calling the shots anymore. Live with it, libs. You know, the crying about it isn't going to change anybody's mind.
And I would just point out there was a lot of apprehension in some circles about Kevin McCarthy being speaker. Sometimes, Buck, until you're in that leadership chair, you never really know what somebody's going to govern like, because it's incredibly difficult to become speaker. You have to spend decades, really, getting into a position to become speaker. Sometimes when you're finally there, you can really enact many of the things that you weren't able to argue for as a part of building yourself up to the speaker position. Does that make sense? Like Joe Biden's a good example, a good example of someone who got into office and basically has governed as a far left-wing zealot, despite the fact that he ran as this Trojan horse, I'm not going to actually rock the boat very much. Kevin McCarthy is starting already to make really significant waves. And just that that audio that we played for a second ago, the question was premised on the idea. Let me kind of let you know what it was. It was on the idea that, George Santos is sitting on a committee, and McCarthy came out and said, well, he's not sitting on the Intelligence Committee. And let me tell you specifically why Schiff and Swalwell are not on there. The fact that MSNBC is out there arguing, look, Swalwell slept with a Chinese spy. That's a huge story that directly implicates whether he can be trusted with intelligence data. Schiff directly lied when he knew that he was lying. Not because he ended up being wrong later. He knew that what he was spreading about Trump was a lie. Why would anyone want them on the Intelligence Committee? Well said by Kevin McCarthy to lay out the exact rationale. Now, I don't know what the left wing hears because I don't know how this question is covered, but he got his story out there and he did a great job of it.
And if he continues to take the fight to the other side and stand up on issues like this, because the go along to get along maneuver, the Republican establishment glad-handing and grinning maneuver would have been, all right, fine, we'll let the Democrats have their assignments. No, he didn't do that. Now, I know some people are probably thinking, all right, Buck, well, it's only been, a few weeks, and that's fine, but it has been a few weeks, and so far, he does seem to have gotten the message a little bit from those who didn't feel like he was enough in the fight and representing, let's just be honest, representing the Republican base in a way that was meaningful. And now he's doing some things, we call balls and strikes, right? If he's throwing a heater at 95 miles an hour down the middle, that's a good pitch.
No doubt. He's killing it. And I hope that he's going to be emboldened and continue to stand up. And we'll see, because these debt ceiling negotiations are going to be another big test for him. But the fact that he got the Department of Defense to remove the vaccine mandate was a huge win. And I think what he's deciding now to do with this basically misinformation board that's going to look into big tech and their power with Jim Jordan at the top, which has also been announced, I believe is going to be massively important. And I love, frankly, what he did with Schiff and Swalwell and holding them accountable for what they did. And did you see, maybe we can play this audio somewhere down the line, but Swalwell came out and said, people are threatening to kill us because of how mean Kevin McCarthy's being. I'm so sick of the whole somebody sent me death threats. It sucks. I think you should be prosecuted if you send death threats. Are we going to pretend that Republicans are not also getting deluged with negativity and death threats because Democrats have tried to pretend that Republicans are basically Nazis? Come on. This is ridiculous. If you make a death threat, you should be prosecuted. But this idea that being kept off of the Intelligence Committee is the reason why people are behaving in a ruckus fashion online is simply not true.